You're listening to an exclusive podcast of Gold Hawk Fights Back for You on AM 740 Zoomer Radio. Gold Hawk Fights Back for You airs Monday to Friday, 11 to 1 on AM 740 Zoomer Radio.
Gold Hawk Fights Back on Zoomer Radio. Here is Dale Goldhawk.
Well, let's spend the next little while turning away from politics and turning towards computers and how we keep them safe and how we safely negotiate the Internet, which has so much become part of our lives in these modern times. But what with all the phishing scams and the bad guys lurking around every website, we have to be, I think, more and more careful. I have on the line Teju Herath, who is Assistant Professor of Information Systems in the Goodman School of Business at Brock University. Teju Herath, welcome to Zoomer Radio.
Thank you, Dale.
Now, the notion of keeping our computers safe, I think a lot of us these days are tempted to think of the Internet more as the cafeteria scene in Star Wars, surrounded with all kinds of culprits, and you never know when you might make a wrong step and do something that's going to cost you, something in terms of your computer, maybe some money out of your bank account as far as that goes.
That's true. Our computers can be used in a variety of ways. Identity theft has become a very big problem, and as consumers and as citizens, we use technology extensively in our day-to-day lives. So certainly something that we should be aware of, and it's not something that is very scary if we know how to kind of deal with these issues as well.
Well, that's easy to say, and maybe not so easy for mere mortals such as myself to accomplish. How do you do that?
It depends on what kind of problem we are talking about. Keeping computers safe is a kind of a large, horizon that we are covering. There are many, many different issues. If we are using computers, our computers up to date with our operating system updates, whether our computers are free from viruses and worms and those kind of threats. Do we have antivirus? Do we use antivirus? There are a variety of security software that as an individual user we can use. If we talk about our online activities, there are certainly different, best practices that that guide us. So depending on what kind of security we are dealing with, I think these methods of prevention or methods of dealing with them will be
can it be said then that if you use good antivirus programs and you keep the computer up to date, both things of which are pretty easy to do, but if you're diligent about those things, you stand a pretty good chance of not being affected?
No, not really. Identity theft happens in many ways, and phishing, as you kind of mentioned in your comment, it's a very different trick. It's basically a fraudulent email that comes to your inbox seeking some of your personal information. So it perpetually comes from your bank or perhaps where you're working, and it seeks your passwords, account numbers, and so on. And trusting that particular email, you may click on a link that is embedded in that particular email and go to a website where you can give your credentials, such as your password, account number, and so on. So now antivirus and things are not going to prevent
that.
They
won't help that, will
they?
Because that's the human factor where you're actually being conned by somebody in an email being sent to you. The problem, I think, with these phishing emails and other scams you get into your inbox, they're getting better and better. They masquerade as major companies. They do this, they do that, and they become more and more convincing over time. The bad guys are really refining their practices here.
You nailed it on the head, and this is so true that the emails are becoming more and more convincing. They are using the tactics that organizations themselves may use. So if bank wants to send a kind of a promotional email to consumers, perhaps the format will look in a certain manner, and these emails use the logos of the companies, use the similar seals at the bottom. They use signature that may, to a naive user, user may seem like it's coming from your own company, So they are, getting better and better, and technology is allowing us to replicate this in an easy manner. Even creating the website, some of these phishing websites, basically they look exactly same like your bank's website. And the front facade is exactly same.
Yeah.
It's just it's a fake website, but the format exactly looks very same.
I had a phishing scheme come at me a couple of weeks ago and pretended to be American Express.
Yes.
I almost fell for it because it had certain details.
Yes.
That it had the last 3 or 4 digits of my credit card number and all this kind of stuff. And then I thought, well, no, what are they asking you, Dale? And they were asking me to click on a link and go and do something. And I thought, oh, well, there's the old red flag, clicking on the link, right?
Yes. And actually, at least it raised the flag for you, but many of us fall for it. And it sometimes comes from banks, sometimes it comes from even, I have seen many of them coming from Apple, where we use iPads and those we download iTunes and so on. So now I have seen many in last little while from Apple kind of thing. And many of them actually don't even come from the financial organization. They come from the companies that you work for. So I work at Brock University, and we often get emails that are seeking our account names and passwords. And their intention is not really financial gain, but to kind of create harm using your authenticated account.
Well, now, answer me this. So if one is very convincing and you do click on the link, and a page might come up asking for personal information, that might give you a red flag moment, and you'd say, oh, no, I'm not going to give that information. But isn't it true to say that sometimes if you click on the link, malware can be downloaded to your computer and you might not even know about it?
That is true, and actually there is some statistics that is on Kaspersky Lab, which is a security company, which compiles every year, and many countries, the home computers are significantly kind of, affected by viruses and worms, and that basically comes from our links that we are clicking, right?
Yeah.
And many times, as you mentioned, we may not even know that actually our computer has got infected with this malware.
Well, you could even be just clicking on a website. You could just be, out surfing the web, as it were.
Yes.
And you click on a website. Some website could download malware, depending on what it is, and that would happen to you that way as well. You'd never know. You'd never know what was happening, right?
Yeah, and for this kind of download of the malware, the initial strategies we talked about having an up-to-date antivirus and up-to-date operating system, and we know that,
they would catch those things, would they?
They will catch those things. So at least when we click on the link, the malware, we will get the notification that it looks like, and most often it will be even kind of prevented. It will be blocked.
I just worry about what things they're going to come up with tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and next month and next year as some of these things some of the pitches and cons become so refined. It's going to be tougher and tougher to stay away from them.
And for sure, I work in this area. I do research in this area for years, and even for me, it is so hard to keep up. And even with this phishing research, we started it. A team of us started it a while ago, 6-7 years ago. But it's constantly evolving, and they seem to be almost 1 or 2 steps ahead of us all the time.
They do. They're bad guys, but some of them are pretty smart, working in their pajamas in their basements, right?
Exactly. And phishing, which basically started as an email where you clicked on the link, now there are new variants of phishing. So initially it was just bank account information, and the motive was very clearly financial, that they just want to deplete your accounts, then they started asking your account name and passwords, basically for your computer accounts, right? So there, the intention is to kind of use your account to do some kind of a malicious activity.
Of course.
Now the new variants, we extensively kind of engage in social networking environments. So there are new variants that are appearing on the social networking sites. And actually, I was surprised. There is this new initiative, Get Cyber Safe, and many of these things are listed there. But text, many people are using the text messaging. And the variants that are of phishing are coming on text messaging services. Those are known as smishing. And actually, CBC News, they reported in January a new kind of identity theft or phishing scam that hit Canada, where exactly like you mentioned, the call, here it was just a phone call that used to come in the late in the evening, like a telemarketing or bank kind of calls. And they basically wanted to check a transaction that person had made, kind of perpetrating that they are calling from a bank. They are bank officials, and seems like there was an unauthorized transaction. And just to kind of, confirm that transaction.
We've talked about that one frequently. Yeah, it's part of. It's like the old bank inspector scam long before computers were even in the hands of people.
Gold Hawk Fights Back for You airs Monday to Friday, 11 to 1 on AM 740 Zoomer Radio.
Gold Hawk Fights Back on Zoomer Radio. Here is Dale Goldhawk.
Talking a bit about how to keep our computers safe from the bad guys, the hackers, the phishers, the whatevers. My guest is Teju Herath, who's Assistant Professor of Information Systems in the Goodman School of Business at Brock University. Teju, we often talk about keeping the computers safe, but all of us have personal devices that we're always gaping at, staring at, and surfing on. They're subjected to attacks from the bad guys too, aren't they?
Oh, they are very much so. And again, like you said, we use these mobile devices extensively, and we keep on changing them quite often. Every 2-3 years, we'll change our phone, and with the new phone, then of course the features change, and we have to kind of understand the security and privacy features our mobile devices have, so that we can do the information transfer more securely, and also keep our devices safe and secure.
Well, because it is now possible, as you well know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, it's possible to do your banking on a smartphone, for crying out loud. And I don't think a lot of us take privacy and security when we're dealing with our handheld devices as we do with our computers.
That's true, and we use our handheld devices from anywhere, and there are some best practices. Of course, most of the banks use the secured websites, and it's kind of okay to use the website. However, the most important thing is that you have initiated that contact, so you have typed in your bank's URL or address, web address yourself, rather than clicking a link that came through you through some of these venues. Right?
Well, that's a good rule of thumb, isn't it? If you're making the contact, you're in much better shape and much safer than if someone is trying to contact you and you do not know who they are.
Exactly, and that's one of the best practices often recommended, that you initiate that contact. And you will notice in many of these frauds, even if the phone call comes, you can ask them, can you leave your phone number, and I'll call you back. Because you always can verify what is your bank's phone number, and you yourself can call. And most often, actually, these fraudsters give you the phone numbers that are not existing or that are not working.
That's right.
So it's very important that if you have to give out this information, at least that communication has initiated by you, and it's not kind of just a cascading something of other activity.
But in terms of safety, keeping your computing devices safe, I mean, even with some apps these days that you might want to use, you'll go in, and if you read the permissions, it'll make your socks roll up and down. They want access to all your pictures, all your telephone contacts, they want to become part of your life if you say yes and accept those, just so you can use this app.
Exactly. And I think at some point we have to just take a step back and evaluate what is it that we are ready to divulge. It's seeking more and more personal information. Also, as you mentioned, are we using secured connection? And many of us actually use these devices through in cafes and coffee shops. And it's another recommended practice that, especially if you want to go on your bank's website and so on, don't use a public Wi-Fi, right? So some of these initiatives like CyberSafe or RCMP sites and so on, they kind of recommend many of these good practices that as consumer or a citizen we can easily, adapt.
Well, I guess the safest way to go, though, would still be, if your device even has this kind of a receptacle, an Ethernet connection, a wired connection, right? Remember those days?
Those days are long gone, and I guess we probably do not want to go back to them, but at least...
Well, in fact, you buy computers these days, they don't have an Ethernet cable. You got to buy all kinds of fancy connections so you can connect up to the Internet.
Exactly, and not only just the Wi-Fi, but it will be Bluetooth enabled, and so many devices can be connected together and so on and so forth. So I think the technology is advancing at a fast pace, and we do enjoy the benefits of using this technology in our day-to-day lives. And certainly some of these applications are enriched because of all these new advancements.
You can say that, and it's true, and it's convenient, and in some cases it's enjoyable. It's wonderful to have a Facebook page, blah, blah, blah. You can go on and on, but then you get to the point where everybody knows everybody's business, and that's where we're heading, isn't it?
Exactly. And so I think it's kind of a very important that at some point that we start just taking a step back and evaluating what is us and what are we doing. Is it kind of a secured or safe practice? And like you mentioned, sometimes our life is becoming easy. So is this online banking we really love as consumer, because otherwise we had to go to bank every time, right?
Well, no, and it's perfectly wonderful that I can at 3 o'clock in the morning do my banking from my office at home. I mean, these are wonderful conveniences.
And we can purchase online. It's just that, when we are giving out this information, we have to be just a little more wary.
Yeah, maybe that's it. We take all of this for granted, and if we don't hear about some great computer hacking episode that's happened, or some department store or some big company that's been hacked by somebody, we kind of let our guard down a bit, don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the conversation today. It helps us keep our guard up. And we should always remember, should we not, let me ask you if you agree with this, that anything you email or anything you do online, consider it not to be between you and the person you're talking to.
Oh, very much so. There is this saying that they say that you should write in email what you would not mind being posted on the World Wide Web for everybody to view it.
I think you're right. People have gotten into great trouble with that.
Exactly.
Teju, thank you very much for your time today. I'm out of time here. I'm going to have to go, but thanks very much for all your valuable information.
Thank you very much, Dale, for having me.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Teju Herath, Assistant Professor of Information Systems at the Goodman School of Business, and that's at Brock University.
Gold Hawk Fights Back for You airs Monday to Friday, 11 to 1.